for just one more moment. I mean, imagine our excitement when it was far more successful than we could have ever predicted. We were over the moon because all that interest meant that our Discovering Revelation full message meetings were going to be huge. And we were already queued up with our first 200 public evangelistic meetings here in America this year, which were scheduled to launch the first week of March. Those were just the first 200 of 1,000 meetings that were planned across the entire division. So you can imagine, we were pretty excited. It was going very well. And thanks to you, we had just created one of the best evangelistic series in modern history for all of our Discovery Centers to use. I mean, we gave churches the stuff I've never had access to. And because it's been a year since you've seen some of what you've created, let me show you a little taste of what you helped happen through your prayers and support. That's what God used you to make happen. After months of working night and day, just in the nick of time, thanks to you, we got this evangelistic series ready for our first 200 churches, and all of them were scheduled to open on March 6th. And man, I knew it was going to be good, but I had no idea how good. All across the nation, people showed up. Churches that hadn't had an evangelistic audience in years suddenly had people sitting there in their churches on the edge of their seats, amazed at what Seventh-day Adventists have to offer. From auditoriums to fellowship halls, from small groups to public auditoriums, the turnout was incredible. So a week before the meetings, I moved into our basement vault at the office. It's an old bank building. And I moved there so that I could coach the churches for an hour or so every single morning, interact live. And they could ask questions through a dedicated email and a 1-800 number. I wore a phone on my hip all day long to take the calls, and we were ready to support all those churches night and day. It was easily one of the most exciting moments in my entire ministry. And then, of course, it happened. Within a week of opening all those meetings, a few state governments started shutting down the public meetings, anything over 250 people. Then they dropped it to 50, then 10, and then they just banned public meetings altogether. So just like that, everything you and I had prayed about for years came to a grinding halt, and it was over. And then I noticed something really interesting about that pandemic. Now, I want you to take this with a grain of salt because you can read this any number of ways, but if I believe in the great controversy, and I do, then I have to think that the biggest issue behind everything that goes on in this world is the battle for human souls. So take a look at this and make of it what you want, but this is a map of our first 200 meetings all across the continent. And then this is a map of the places where the pandemic first touched down. Now, you can call that overlap a coincidence. Maybe it is. But I have to personally believe that the work of the remnant church is a key part of what's going on in this world. I mean, I have seen with my own eyes clear evidence over the years that when you and I go out and do the one thing that God asked us to do, amazing stuff starts to happen. God begins to move in incredible ways. And the forces of darkness always respond. So imagine the reaction you might get from the forces of darkness if hundreds of churches started working together. Imagine the kind of interference you might get. Personally, I don't think these maps are a coincidence. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand. I'm not saying it's all about us and that there aren't other factors in play, because there are. But is that really just a coincidence? Now, I've got to tell you, in spite of the shutdowns, we had discovery centers that refused to quit. They kept going to the very bitter end. People like Pastor Edgar in Atlanta, who managed to sneak in some baptisms just 10 days into his meetings, and Sherry from North Carolina, who sent all the church members home so that the guests could keep coming when attendance was restricted. We had audiences everywhere. We know this was working. And then it was over. And I mean, it was really over. And everything we dreamed about and everything we prayed for, it was suddenly gone. Now, what some people wanted to do, and this is understandable, what they wanted to do was let's just keep preaching on YouTube or Facebook. But honestly, that created a massive problem because it was destroying the effectiveness of the meetings, possibly forever. Let me see if I can explain that, because that's a new thought to some people. There's a very good reason you won't find my entire evangelistic series online. It's because 95% of evangelism happens in a personal relationship, and only about 5% actually comes from the preaching, which is why Ellen White tells us again and again and again and again that preaching is completely ineffective without personal work. And so it's not good enough to simply put information out there without the personal touch. It doesn't work. Just posting videos online is not evangelism, because what you want is to have people come to the church and meet you so you can help them make decisions. Otherwise, you really are wasting your time. And then if you have 1,200 discovery centers and somebody puts the meetings up online for the whole world to watch, it creates a couple of massive problems. First of all, people are going to watch the meetings out of their God-given order, and there is an order to the meetings that God has given us. Now, watching them out of order can be disastrous because naturally, where are they going to go? They're going to gravitate to the mark of the beast, and they're not going to understand it because they don't have all the context they need. Secondly, and this is more important, once somebody's meetings are available online on YouTube or Facebook, now everybody can watch it at home. And so this one series online destroys the opportunity for everybody. Why would I come to your meetings when I can just watch it on YouTube? That is not the way we've been counseled to do this. And I have got no choice. I have got to be faithful to the counsel we've been given. So what in the world could we do with these meetings when we were shut down? Well, we had no choice but to stop the public meetings, because the last thing we needed was to draw the wrath of the media against the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And you'll notice that religious meetings became something of a lightning rod for criticism this last summer. But then it occurred to us, we weren't the only ones stuck at home. All the interests were stuck at home too, and they were scared and they were lonely and they wanted more of what they'd been hearing. So of course, we just happen to have the world's biggest Bible school. It's perfectly positioned for this. So we moved our church meetings to online personal Bible studies. And I've got to say, this is where we hit a huge home run this summer. We delivered the Discover lessons to the home, and then the churches could meet with people one-on-one, online, 2 to 3 times a week personally. And what happened was nothing short of phenomenal. As you know, most public evangelistic meetings tend to shrink just a little bit over the course of a month. Not a lot, but a little bit. But when Discovery Center suddenly moved to personal online Bible study, their audiences began to grow. They actually ended up with more interest at the end than they had at the beginning. And that's not the only miracle that took place, not even by a long shot. All kinds of amazing things started to happen in the middle of this unbelievable mess. Amanda, one of our sponsors, who's probably online right now, she's a nurse practitioner in Florida who works in hospice along with a friend of hers named Corey. And over the years, they've had a number of good spiritual discussions. And given the nature of their work, they sometimes naturally talk about, well, the state of the dead. Then when the pandemic hit, Corey really started to think about the state of our world, and she said, I'd like to study the book of Revelation because it's just such a mystery to me. So Amanda said, I've got just the thing for you. And she gave her a DVD set of the Revelation Speaks Peace meetings we held in Minnesota, which is the same thing as Discovering Revelation. And the first time they got together, they watched for 4 straight hours. And after that, they watched 2 hours every single night. And then something incredible happened. Amanda's husband is high risk for COVID-19. And because Amanda works in the healthcare industry, she had to move out of the house. So Corey said, well, listen, why don't you come live with me for a few weeks and bring along those DVDs? And so she did. And they were able to keep on studying. And now Corey is part of our Seventh-day Adventist movement. So this is why I'm telling you that a crisis is actually an opportunity. A crisis never catches God by surprise, but it did catch us by surprise. All that planning, all that prayer, all that fundraising, and now it was over. And we were suddenly faced with a really big question. What do we do if life never goes back to normal? What if we can't go back to large public meetings? I think we will, but what if we can't? How do we keep these discovery centers going? Because I've got to tell you, I am absolutely determined that we are not going to stop what God has asked us to do. We are going to be found faithful. So right now, by faith, we've moved everything down the road 1 full year. Revelation 2020 has now become Revelation 2021. And because churches were not able to use all their evangelistic resources the way they hoped, well, we've extended everybody's Discovery Center license for an extra year. Now, of course, that also means we won't be able to recoup a single dime for the next 12 months in Discovery Center fees. Now, that's something we had to do. It's only right. Everybody got shut down. So this is really where I'm going to need some help. As sponsors, God used you to make all this happen. It was your gift that made the impossible take place. And you and I saw the potential. It really worked. We know this approach is what God asked us to do. And I am, as your speaker at this ministry, determined that we are going to push through. This is absolutely going to happen. But I really need your help, especially now with everything that's going on. Honestly, I don't know of a time in the history of this ministry where your support is going to have this much impact. Maybe like me, you were excited by the thought of actually getting the work finished. Maybe you saw the incredible potential of this project and you really, really wanted to see the whole world light up with the 3 angels' messages. And maybe like me, you dream of getting through this crisis so we can finally go home. So let me tell you, there's never been a better opportunity than now. This might actually be our best moment yet, and I'm asking you to join me and take a leap of faith to make sure that what you started here keeps going. Just look over here to see ways that you can help. This is going to happen. Your Voice of Prophecy team is working on real solutions right now, and in the next 3 to 4 months, God willing, every Discovery Center is going to be able to open again, online, with a brand new virtual evangelistic hall. We're building a new digital solution that solves all the issues I described a moment ago with going online. What we're building makes it possible to go online and do it the way God asked us to do it. So this website right here where you and I are meeting for sponsorship, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. This is actually a prototype of a special digital solution that we can offer to our Discovery Center churches. And this is not Skype and it's not Zoom, because those have some real limitations. And those platforms belong to people who can stop us from using them if they want. What you're looking at here is a digital platform especially designed for Seventh-day Adventist evangelism, where you can invite people to your church with a virtual platform you can rely on. And it's going to be interactive, so your guests can actually ask questions as you're speaking to them. So the minute this meeting, right now, today, the minute this is over, Your VOP team is going to rework this very website and turn it into a digital, online, interactive, evangelistic hall that every Discovery Center can use. And it will be designed specifically for the work of God's last day remnant church. Because listen, last time, this year, we got caught by surprise. There's no way you can predict a global pandemic. But I'll tell you this, we're not going to be surprised again. I am convinced that you and I are doing the right thing, and we're going to get this done in the next crisis because you know there's going to be another one. The next crisis is only going to help us. So imagine, not one, not two, but 1,000 evangelistic meetings online. Imagine a special digital evangelistic hall for every one of your churches, because frankly, right now, the whole world expects online. Somehow this is going to happen. We're not going to let a little crisis bring God's work to a screeching halt. In fact, by faith, I'm personally planning for another citywide evangelistic campaign in person because, well, I'm going to keep doing this until I can't anymore.